A blank sheet of paper. Space was like that. For years, motionless, static. Completely stable. Nothing to be created. Nothing to be destroyed. Beautiful or ugly, what does it matter? It was there, billions of years ago. Intact. Purpose? Why does everything have a purpose? It was just there, no beginning or end. But, wait. What is that moving like a wave? It seems to be increasing in volume and moving. It seems to have life. I think from now on, the universe would no longer be the same.
Space, the final frontier.
As Captain Kirk would say in his Star Treks.
Was it really? I do not believe. I only know that, out of nowhere, I began to perceive my existence. When I began to think, then, I existed, and I noticed that everything around me was a kind of light. The light in the same way that beings created by you perceive it.
Referring to the synthetics we create.
And if everything was light, yes, I too was made of light. And the entire universe was completely filled with her. There were no solid shapes drifting in space, only light. And I could feel it, sense it, any movement in the light particles bounced off me too, like a wave. It seemed that I acquired new particles to my being, and that made me more questioning, just like you were, when you were created.
Referring to us, the Atlanteans.
Every particle that composed me seemed to allow me to think, to question. And this led me to questions such as, what was I? Why was I there? What is my purpose in this immense universe? What, or who, created me? Was it pure chance? As of the conclusion of this story, I still hadn't gotten any answers. The place where I was something immense. There was no way to identify where this immensity of light began and where it ended. I was part of it all, and it seemed like there was nothing but me in this entire universe. It's hard for me to accept something continuous, without beginning and without end, but that's the universe. I don't even know how this universe came about, but I could say that it was composed only of these particles that revolved around themselves. But, and you? What would you say? You would ask myself where the first particle had come from. And I couldn't answer. Or, I could say that there is a point in the universe where these particles are generated, but then you would say, but how did this point come about? I would run out of answers. The only thing I've noticed, so far, is that this universe is a single system with no interchange with any other system, and, within it, nothing is created or lost. I wondered what that light would be. To me, it was a collection of particles and all the same shape, infinitesimally small. Yes, very small indeed. They seemed to revolve, at a very high speed, around themselves. I began to notice that at certain points I no longer felt light, as if all that clarity was diminishing, separating more and more, as if creating voids in space. I haven't had the slightest idea what caused it. Perhaps caused by the movement of microscopic independent particles, as if they were colliding with each other. I didn't even know why I appeared there. How could I know why this happened? So I decided to search every quadrant, every piece of this whole area, and after a long journey, I noticed that I gained speed every moment, and the more I wanted to get there, the faster I moved, much faster. But how could it be possible to increase my movement? In reality, I moved by changing from particle to particle. And I realized that I could do it very quickly. So I thought I'd try as much speed as possible that I could achieve. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. A much greater luminosity began to form in front of me, like a portal opening and sucking me inside. And amazingly, it was another identical universe where I was, but it seemed to be intact, completely filled with light, very similar to the universe where I was born. I tried accelerating again to travel faster, and voila! Another portal opened and I was sucked in again. And, again, another identical universe without any changes. Just full of light like the previous one. I tried again to accelerate faster than before and a portal opened again, only this time it brought me back to the first one. I was mistaken, there was not a single universe, but 3, however, in different dimensions. Perhaps, in circular form. And that speed I applied seemed to be the maximum possible. Since I've been away, new gigantic homogeneous groups have detached and moved farther away from each other. Some groups of particles seem to be slower in their rotation and moved independently of the main movement that gave rise to this astral revolution. Gigantic masses of solids were scattered and some collided, splitting or changing direction. All these changes would have occurred due to the change in the speed of the particles, I concluded. The original particle seemed to spin at a speed that created a space between them, as if there was a vacuum around them. Those that lost little speed began to approach more among the same ones that also had reduced their speeds. Others lost more and formed other groups similar to each other, and so on. Those that reached almost zero speed began to change shape, ceasing to be spherical and behaving like a spindle, so as to approach each other to the point of almost joining. From there, some joined by the spindles, but lost almost completely their speed. Depending on the connection speed, various elements emerged, and each minimal piece of element, I believe it referred to its atom, joined another through particles that did not unite and that still had more speed. And so, various compounds formed in various solid, liquid, and gaseous states. The gaseous ones had each free minimal piece rotating around itself, totally independent. Particles that lost speed but remained independent followed a certain rhythm of movement. This cadence is what led all bodies to move in space.
I think it refers to inertia.
This same concatenation of movements tended to force other bodies to unite, forming unique, very solid groups.
I think it's the force of gravity.
In this way, certain gases passed into a liquid state when their smallest pieces were approximated by free particles with lower speed. This allowed the tiny piece to continue moving, but at a slower speed. The solids would no longer have speed. Although there were some that had flexibility and therefore allowed a little particle movement to circulate within them. Including, these particles can pass through everything, whether solid or liquid, that is formed. All this seemed so clear to me, but I didn't know how I could confirm this theory of mine, and it would remain only in theory until the moment when I started to have company. Thus, I saw many shapes form in space, thanks to the alterations that occurred to these particles, which even generated me.